the there's definitely a honeymoon phase of like, I think it's just awesome to see the setting continue, and like that thing I love of like, the setting plus time is a it's a there's a like a buff, a glaze that I enjoy of like seeing that, yeah, of seeing like not only that setting continue, but like seeing it continue with characters that are aged or up from the original as well, and
Hmm.
so I always am gonna love the fact that they did that and went in that direction with it. And then I guess it's just gonna come down to, what are the things these characters do, and what decisions is she gonna make, and you know how justifiable or not justifiable will they be. But
I
uh,
think I think that
so far
Avatar.
didn't mind it.
I think at Avatar as a series discovered like I'm gonna say like a writing trap for people in terms of dealing with characters, and that is I don't know if you remember, but like in the lead up to Korra, like when they're explaining who Korra is, they said, well, Aang was an emotionally mature child, right? He was smart, he was bright.
He didn't
He didn't
start
have
that
whole.
way, but you got to watch him figure out how to become more emotionally mature.
Right, but specifically what he needed to learn is how to fucking do avatar shit. Right? As a person, the writers viewed him as like a bright and smart person that was like emotionally mature, regardless of him being a child, right? I'm describing an interview that I read before the thing came out. Then they take
Okay.
Korra and they said that Korra is emotionally immature but can do all of the avatar stuff. She can fight like crazy, but she is hot-headed, she
She
is reckless, etc.
Yeah, she is hot-headed and reckless in a way that is more aggressive than Aang's kind of like more carefree nature. But Aang was also emotionally like uh he it took a he would also like fly off and not be sure how to handle his feelings, and he'd have these moments where he would like crack. And a big part of the struggles he had was don't enter the avatar state when you're not in a calm state of mind, right? He had to learn how to enter it from a
Yeah.
good place and not from a place where you're all wound up, because then the actions you do are awful ones.
But what I mean is, as an 11-year-old, Aang was a lot more put together emotionally and spiritually than Korra is as an 18-year-old by
Mm-hmm.
comparison to their ages,
Yes, yes, yes.
right?
True. For
And
the
that
age
that's
difference, yes,
that's the
absolutely.
point that this interview was making with one of the writers. And what you discover is that Aang, when he acted like, a kid or emotionally mature, it was appropriate for his
For
age,
his age, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's learning how to fight. You go to Korra is a character who knows how to fight and do all the magic shit, but because she's hot-headed, reckless, and emotionally immature, she makes mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
The viewer says, "But Aang wouldn't have made those mistakes," and then they get angry. Do you see what I'm saying here?
Right, right, right. Yeah.
It's frustrating because despite they're different characters of the
I mean,
series, the emotional maturity starts to go down.
yeah. Now, of course, there are people that are four times Korra's age that are four times shittier. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So, like, you would hope that you learn to be a bit more mature about things and handle problems that have people's lives at stake, um, in a manner that is, yeah, like not completely just like, wah, this is what I feel and that's what's going to
Mhm.
determine the outcome. End of story. But yeah, all this, but yes, of course, however you choose to write her is, I'm sure. Well, I feel like a lot of stories they'll like start with a template and then kind of like write themselves in up to a place where they have an idea of where they want to go, but you'll figure it
Mhm.
out on the fly, right? So anything that she does that has consequences might not have been um, thought out outside of like the end state needs to be, this is the new villain, this is the new conflict we're going to deal with in this season.
I also think that the one of the weirder things is like considering how much like Avatar the first show made a big deal of like the should I kill people or not, and like moving on even to the books that you're reading, like I remember this was coming out alongside Steven Universe and it was really strange to have all this media going like I bet you like here's hoping the villains just kill themselves because I'm not going to do anything about it.
Now, something that's to bring it back to what I was talking about with the comics, something interesting in the search, of course, is like, okay, so Azula sucks, and
Has to go.
right?
The idea that you said, here's what happens to Azula, as implying that it's not just put her in the dirt. Holy shit, dude.
And this is the wild part, is like, it's like, okay, so Nickelodeon kids, right? The whole struggle, exactly. Should you kill the bad guy? He's an evil man. He's a full grown ass evil man. All right, now there's an evil child. Do you just fucking
Surely we can
wipe
kill
out
guilty children.
do you just wipe out the guilty children? You know? And it is like, it's interesting because I'm like, yeah, if your premise is that you gotta give them a shot, right? Then let me see you stretch this premise to its conclusion. And in the search, right, you kind of get, so it's like Azula's here and you're like, oh my god, okay, we're gonna try to deal with this. What is the right thing to do with someone that fucking shitty? And if it's not offing them, then what, right? And there's like that, Zuko's like, hey man, I was pretty shitty too, and you watched me figure it out.
But you weren't that shitty, Zuko.
But let's give it a second, you know? And then Azula's like, ah! And he's like, okay. And they're like, and then the crew is like, dude, I don't know, man. It's no, she's my sister, dude. No. Okay, let's go, you know? And then she's like, ah! And they're like, he's like, okay. And they're like, dude, I don't, like, they're like, it's one of these things where he's like, give her another chance. And then she freaks the fuck out. And they're like, dude, no. And she's like, don't give her another. And like, it keeps happening.
Yeah.
Right? And you're just like, oh, she's just like, she's broken, you know?
Yeah,
and then
there's a huge issue here. This is like I forget who termed it, or if I'm just inventing this in my mind, but I think of it in my own head as the X-Men problem, where you're like, who is the X-Men supposed to be? The X-Men are supposed to be a representation of societies like underclass or visible minority, or on the outskirts of society, right? And they're the recipients of prejudice, right? Mm-hmm. But Wolverine has fucking claws in his hand you can't take away from him.
You can't do it.
Fucking Cyclops has a fucking like cannon strapped to his eyeballs. So making the fucking comparison, being like, man, the X-Men are fighting for their right to exist. It's just like gay people. No, it's not. Gay people don't have guns in their arms from birth. That's not a thing. And Azula's the same way. Like, oh, can you rehabilitate a really damaged 14-year-old? Not one that's a human gun. You can start by taking her human gun away and see what you get from that. Yes. But that bitch would stab a baby if the baby said goo goo gaga water temple or whatever. Like, that bitch is crazy.
Yes, no. A gay person with the ability to rewrite reality. With the ability to control the concept of ice, which is the absence of heat, which is actually work, and force, which is energy, which is how all life like fucking flourishes, which is the second law of thermodynamics. It's you can't the ability to fuck with that. Yeah,
it's not the same.
No.
If we lived in the world of X-Men, yeah, people would be fucking terrified of mutants.
Yeah.
You get a little anxiety in your tummy when you see a guy at the store carrying a revolver on his hip. What about Mr. Eye-Beams or Mr. Can make all the metal attack you?
Now, so for the purposes of the story, right? Azula's like, ah! And she's throwing lightning bolts.
I don't know.
And Zuko's like, fuck, god damn it, I can catch your lightning, idiot. Stop it. Anyways, would we, and like it's this great thing where like
trying to figure
like
out a
you're
window,
you're
it's not
pushing
gonna
the
work.
level of reasonable
Both those ways.
patience to its extreme limits, to beyond the point where anyone would accept, you know. And you're dealing with kids, right? That's the main through line here. And you just kind of, you hit a point where it's like, okay, it doesn't matter how many of these redemption style moments, because I mean, again, Zuko, while having not done anything as bad as she did, had what was great about his story is, and what we always remember is, it's not just the road to redemption, right? It's the key part to me, at the very least, was when you were almost there and then you had a chance to take everything you ever wanted by throwing out the road that you were just on. By abandoning this path to redemption, you have an opportunity to take everything you ever wanted right here offered to you, and you're like, oh, fuck me, I still want it. Something deep inside me still wants it, and I'm going to switch back over, right?
Yeah,
And
I want it.
and that moment where Iroh shuts down on him, like, that's the real. That's what made me go, this show is fucking amazing. Because the simple path back that's that's no winding turns, and where you don't actually get a chance at a better outcome for yourself, is easy, because you're like, well, I want this path back, not only because I feel bad about what I did, but probably because I'll feel better of the guilt in my head, whatever the case is. But if you have the chance to abandon it for the fucking temptations of beforehand and then some,
I think the point you're
proves your
making
character
here is perfect, because the struggle that you see in Zuko, and even though he fucks it up, like, he fucks it up for a whole season, right? He makes the wrong choice, but you see the struggle and the back and forth, and like,
Thanos, where he makes the Hulk his pet, where Silver Surfer dominates the Hulk, all the superheroes die. It's an amazing story. We covered the origin of the Cosmic Ghost Rider portion of this, but not the main story itself. So, this opens up with Cosmic Ghost Rider traveling from the future into the present day to snatch up Thanos as we know him. Now, we will revisit the idea of Cosmic Ghost Rider because it's been 6 years since we made that video. It couldn't hurt to revisit it over the course of this video. But basically, Thanos in the present day is taken to the far-flung future. And as you can imagine, being snatched up by somebody who he doesn't know and cannot overpower pisses him off to no end. And he just starts, like, lashing out at this guy, right? So much so that he's like, I am Thanos. And then this disembodied voice comes out of nowhere and says, yes, you certainly are. But I am afraid there is no one here to oppose you, boy. Do you see now? You've already won. Now, of course, Cosmic Ghost Rider also has in his possession the Time Stone, but there is a caveat to this. It's not the Time Stone as you normally know it, that there is a kind of limitation which will become apparent over the course of this video. But one of the things this does is it switches over to what's basically the origin of King Thanos. How did this guy get to a place where he destroyed all the superheroes, turned Hulk into his pet, and basically conquered all of creation? Well, much like the Thanos that we know, because he's a future version of the present-day Thanos, their origins are identical up to a point, which is to say, Thanos was born to the Eternals with a deviant gene, he was considered a mutant or a monstrosity among his own people, his mother tried to kill him when he was born because she feared that he would basically rise to try to destroy everything in existence, which is exactly what he did. And so we get this really cool monologue where it says that over time, things rather escalated. That as he grew, Thanos began to alter and experiment on his deviant biology, increasing his strength, his intellect, and his cruelty. And then, I'm sure there's very little need to remind you of Thanos' various quests for universal domination. The Infinity Crusades, the Annihilation Wars, the prophecies and conquests, so on and so forth. But always in the background, there was Mistress Death. This is where things start to deviate, and we actually go into what made King Thanos into King Thanos. Because what we find out is that at some point along the line in the future of the present day, that death never came for Thanos. And so as the Earth's heroes and champions wilted, old and weak around him, Thanos only grew stronger. He became, finally, what he was always meant to be. That for eons, Thanos had been called mad, labeled an aberration, a mutant, a deviant, or evil. But perhaps the truth is that Thanos is no more aberrant than the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. He's no more evil than a cancer cell, and he is no madder than his mother before him. And so while he's on Earth, after massacring the entirety of the superhero community, which includes the Watcher and seemingly also involves the Living Tribunal, And I don't even know how in the world he was able to do that, although I do have a suspicion, I'll talk about that here in a second, that the Celestials arrive on the scene. And it says the Phoenix burns, Galactus devours, the Watchers witness, the Celestials judge, Thanos lives, Thanos denies. And so what you get here is one of only like 4 times in Marvel Comics when Black Bolt of the Inhumans mattered. And that's when Thanos uses him basically as a weapon. He stabs him through the chest, and because Black Bolt's quasi-sonic scream emits a powerful blast of energy, when he screams out after being stabbed, it obliterates all the Celestials. And then, of course, Black Bolt's killed by Thanos because Black Bolt sucks. But here's the reason why I say that the Living Tribunal kind of makes sense. To kind of sidetrack from this for a second, the most powerful Thanos has ever been in the history of Marvel Comics was when he attained something called the Astral Regulator. And the Astral Regulator was basically the source of all creation, essentially the power of the one above all. When he attained it, he killed the one above all. Now, we're not talking about Thanos the End, where he gets like the power of what's basically the heart of the universe. Those are 2 completely different things. But with the Astral Regulator, he becomes the one above all. Now, again, we don't necessarily know if that happens here. I mean, seemingly, if he had that level of power, why would he give it up? Right? So I don't know how in the world it was he was able to kill the Living Tribunal, but he was. And so what ends up happening is that as the story is being told, and once the story is concluded, a fight actually breaks out between the younger Thanos and his older self. And he says, I do not care who you think you are, Pretender, but know this, Thanos will be put in chains and dragged to his knees and disrespected by no one. And that's where King Thanos says, I did not bring you here to fight me, boy. I brought you here for something bigger, something more significant. Now, before he can explain what that is, Cosmic Ghost Rider steps in. And Ghost Rider says, like, number one, you can't kill me, right? Just be aware of that. I'm as dead as anything can possibly be. But 2, the attention of Thanos is taken away when King Thanos begs, when he says, please. Now, anybody who's familiar with the character of Thanos in Marvel Comics will tell you, Thanos never asks for anything, right? Thanos just takes. But there are 2 kinds of people in existence in the Marvel Universe. Those that can defeat Thanos and those who cannot. And that's it. That's all there is. Right? Like, it's what Thanos can do and what Thanos cannot do. Nothing more than that. And so to see King Thanos bend the knee and to beg his younger self, the younger Thanos immediately attacks him, sends him flying out of the Citadel on the remnants of what was basically Earth at one point, and the 2 of them begin to fight again. And with younger Thanos, his whole response is, I don't know who you are, and I don't know what you're playing at, but you are not me. Thanos never begs. Thanos never has begged, and Thanos never will beg. And so what ends up happening is King Thanos overpowers him using the power cosmic. Now, of course, that is an ability that is explicitly confined to Galactus, and whoever it is that Galactus chooses to bestow it. And so the fact that this King Thanos has the power cosmic means that he destroyed Galactus, that and the giant Galactus head in the background. Yes, we will see when that happens. Because it's amazing. Like, it's one of the coolest parts of this whole story. And so what goes on is that as the 2 of them actually start conversing with one another and talking a bit, what we find out and what we're told here is that if there were any doubt left in our young Thanos that the man in front of him was truly himself, separated by millions of years, it was erased with the heat of the power cosmic burning the air in his lungs and the sound of his true name, the one his mother had chosen for him before her mind had been shattered, which of course is Dion. Those of you guys who aren't familiar with this story of Marvel Comics, that's where you got the meme of Thanos who was just totally blinged out. It's Dion, right? It was pretty cool. Makes him sound like a rapper. But basically it says, like, a name that she had only spoken to him on the day that she had died. The fact that this King Thanos knows their true name solidifies immediately to the younger Thanos, okay, you are me, right? You are who you claim to be. And that's why he says, what do you need help with? And this is where it gets cool. This is where the story really starts to take off if you didn't think it had already. Because what happens is Thanos says, I lost someone. I need you to help me bring them back. And when the question is asked by Thanos, who are you talking to? King Thanos says, who do you think I'm talking about? Now, here's the other cool thing. Because Thanos can't really kill anybody anymore because there's no one left in existence seemingly to challenge his rule. There's one guy left, and we'll talk about him here in a second. In order to relish in pain and nihilism, which, as you guys know, Thanos loves death, what he does is he takes the head of the Ghost Rider every morning and he forces the Cosmic Ghost Rider to use the Penance Stare on him. And as those of you guys who are familiar with Ghost Rider know, the Penance Stare is a power of the Ghost Rider that forces you to relive all the horrific things you've done and to feel the pain of all the people that you've inflicted pain on simultaneously. If it doesn't kill you, it'll normally drive you insane. For someone like Thanos, he loves it, right? For him, it's refreshing. It's like going out in the garden and tending to the roses. It's just his thing. And so when younger Thanos experiences this, he's just kind of like, I'm surprised I never thought of anything like this before. It's almost a rush, right? Almost kind of like a drug or something along those lines. And so the two of them kind of go back and forth and banter a little bit with regards to the idea of Mistress Death. Because when it comes to younger Thanos, his question is like, the seat that you have here is reserved for Mistress Death. Where is she? Right? Like, what's going on with her? And Thanos gives the response that you would expect him to give, right? I do not know. I've killed almost every living thing in the entirety of this galaxy. Now, galaxy in this story is synonymous with the universe, right? Everything. Marvel does that from time to time, and I don't really understand why. But he says, I've given her everything, but still, there is yet one being that has eluded me. One final foe. I have brought you here to help me kill this thing. Only then will she come to me. Only then will she be mine. And the question of Thanos is, who is this one person? And the response of King Thanos, the Fallen One. Now here's a funny thing. The younger Thanos kind of scoffs at this idea, and he makes reference to a forgotten herald of Galactus. And that's true. In Marvel Comics, the Fallen One was like the first real herald that Galactus had. But Galactus gave the Fallen One too much power. And so basically the Fallen One kind of went on a rampage, different things like that. It ultimately forced Galactus to lock him up, right? To literally keep him locked away from all of creation. And if he ever were to escape, it would lay waste to everything. Why didn't Galactus just destroy the Fallen One? I don't know, man, because the story needed to be written. I don't know. Editorial decision. I don't know the answer to that question. But the important thing here is this. What King Thanos says is the Fallen One is near, and at its current speed, it will arrive tonight, shortly after the sun falls. Here's the funny thing. The Fallen One is not the old Herald of Galactus. It's somebody else. And so what happens is the younger Thanos ends up traveling with Cosmic Ghost Rider when they go and feed basically what they call the dog. And that's when you get into the segment about like the Hulk who's been turned into the pet of Thanos, because Thanos like keeps him down in this hole in the bottom of the Citadel and just like feeds him scraps. And what you end up learning is that like the Avengers were fed to Hulk. Hulk ate them. Right now, that's one of the interesting things about his character. In different iterations of the Incredible Hulk and Marvel Comics, right? The Incredible Hulk, the End, different things like that. He has no qualms with consuming superheroes if that's what it takes to survive. Old Man Logan, it was the exact same thing. Technically, in the end, he was the last living being on Earth. But that story, God, we covered that story, I think, like 9 years ago. Something crazy, like 7 or 8 years ago. Sometimes I forget how long we do videos. But the bigger point here is the Hulk just resides down here. And you're actually not going to see him in this story for quite some time. More so than that, what you do is you get the identity of who Cosmic Ghost Rider is. Now, here's a funny thing. At the time this story came out, everybody was 100% sure that Cosmic Ghost Rider was Deadpool, because Cosmic Ghost Rider had all the mannerisms of Deadpool. He's exactly what you would expect if Deadpool became the Ghost Rider. It's not Deadpool. Cosmic Ghost Rider was Frank Castle. By now, it's all known by everybody. But at the time, it was crazy when we got this revelation. It was mind-blowing. It was like, holy cow. And so what ends up happening is the younger Thanos basically storms what's essentially the Church of Mistress Death, where King Thanos is currently praying to her, right? Kind of worshiping her, for lack of a better word. And what's cool about this is King Thanos considers this to be an incredibly holy place. So when young Thanos just shows up here and starts screaming, King Thanos pulls out the Twilight Sword of Surtur. Now Surtur, as you guys know, is immensely powerful. So the fact that Thanos was able to kill him was mind-blowing. In Marvel Comics, you do get stories like that sometimes where you have two immensely powerful characters that would never meet, would end up encountering each other. We do not see Thanos fighting and destroying Surtur, unfortunately. That would be cool. But there have been stories where like Galactus invades the realm of Dormammu and defeats Dormammu, which was awesome. I'll link that video at the end of this because we covered that story too. Right, but the cool thing about this is it just really goes to show how powerful King Thanos is. More so than that, the differentiation between the younger version of himself and this older version really lies in the way that they approach the concept of Mistress Death. Because King Thanos is still very much in love with Mistress Death and always trying to attain her affection. The younger Thanos has largely walked away from this, or at least claims that he has, right? I'm no longer in love with her, I don't really care what she wants, it doesn't matter to me, yada yada yada. But King Thanos calls the bluff, right? He's just like, I'm you in the future. I know everything that you are thinking. I am what you become. So when you sit there and you tell me that you don't care about Mistress Death anymore, I know you're not telling the truth because I know exactly what you're thinking in this moment, right? It's just one of these really, really cool bits of things that are here. But what happens is that Thanos asks, when was the last time that you saw Mistress Death? And King Thanos says, hundreds of years ago, thousands? I don't really recall time anymore. It was after I killed that gold skin guy. What was his name? Aaron something. And Thanos is like, Adam Warlock? And the response to King Thanos is, yeah, maybe that's what it was. I'm not really entirely sure. But he says, she was waiting for me after the battle, but she just stood there, not saying a word, as if she were waiting for something more. I didn't know what it was. It took me so long to see it. I gave her everything, my enemies, my allies, my children, everything, and yet she hasn't come to me. And that's usually the way that Mistress Death works. Now, there have been stories, and I don't remember the exact comic, but there was a point, I think, where Mistress Death told Thanos why it is that she cannot love him in the traditional sense, which is that he's living, he's alive, she's dead, and her role is much, much larger than to just like abscond with basically an evil version of Grimace, right? I mean, that's just not her thing, and it's just never ever going to happen. But what's interesting about that is Thanos is actually banished from the realm of Mistress Death. He is immortal, so she made it so he can never die. So essentially, she's just kind of like, I made it so we can never be together, and then at the same time, I'm going to complain about the fact that we're not together, and it's just like, you know, figure it out, girl. But that's the crazy thing here. It's because in the midst of this, the Fallen One arrives on the scene. And that's when you end up learning that the Fallen One is not this old herald of Galactus, it's the Silver Surfer. Now, here's the cool thing, because this is when you switch over to how all this comes together. And you jump back to the Punisher. And what you learn is that in this attack on Earth, when Thanos basically killed all the superheroes alongside an army that he brought to Earth to assist in the invasion, that he obliterated everyone. They never even stood a chance. And so Frank Castle was basically the last man standing. He looked on as like Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and Iron Man were killed by this guy. And so what he does is he says, I would give anything to punish Thanos. And in response to this, his soul is whisked away to the realm of Mephisto, and Mephisto asks, would you give anything, right? What would you be willing to give? And so basically Frank Castle sells his soul to Mephisto. Now, as those of you guys know, and this is what we talked about in the original Origin video that we did, whenever you make a bargain with Mephisto, number one, the deck is always stacked against you. It's why guys like Stephen Strange will make bargains with Mephisto, but they'll find a way to dupe Mephisto while allowing Mephisto to believe that he has the upper hand. But what's always going to happen here for any average Joe that doesn't know what they're doing, they're going to strike a deal, Mephisto is going to honor that deal with some kind of a caveat, and then when you die, you lose your soul. In this instance, Mephisto turned Punisher into the Ghost Rider and gave him all the power that he would need to defeat Thanos. The caveat here, he can never leave Earth. he's stuck on this planet. So until such a time as Thanos returns here, he's just going to be riding around a dead world, able to do basically nothing. But then, out of nowhere, Galactus appears. And when Galactus arrives on the scene with basically his guts spilling out all over the place, he's calling for Reed Richards for aid. But Reed's nowhere to be found because he's dead. They were all destroyed by Thanos. And so Ghost Rider is the only one that's here. Because Galactus doesn't know what's going on, Ghost Rider explains it all, right? Basically everything that we just covered with this massive battle. And so in response to this, Ghost Rider says, look, I'll make a deal with you, right? Make me your herald and hook me up with some crazy cosmic powers, and together we can go and punish Thanos together. Now, one of the reasons why Frank Castle's mannerisms as the Ghost Rider are so different from what you normally see is because anywhere between hundreds to thousands of years have passed since like the ending of all the superheroes and this moment. So basically, he's just been going crazy on Earth, is really all it is. Like a giant planetary version of cabin fever, for lack of a better word. And so where Galactus asks the question, what do I get out of this deal? The response of Frank Castle is, you can have the Earth, but you can consume this place. And so Galactus strikes a deal with the Ghost Rider, gives him the power cosmic, and that's where you get Cosmic Ghost Rider from. Now, one of the things that goes on is we didn't really get any kind of like a buddy cop story where you got to see Cosmic Ghost Rider and basically Galactus running around with each other. A lot of that's because this story was written by Donny Cates, and for any number of reasons, because the stories change in the telling, he doesn't work for Marvel anymore. So as far as I'm aware, he didn't work for anybody anymore. But he never got a chance to really do anything beyond this. So we have no clue if anybody else would pick up the pen and just kind of go from there. What is important is that Cosmic Ghost Rider and Galactus had traversed all of creation for basically thousands of years trying to find King Thanos, who always eluded them. Ultimately, they catch up to him. And as soon as Galactus arrives on the scene, he gets obliterated by King Thanos on the spot. Like, his head gets blown apart. And like, that's the end of him. He's just dead. I mean, just immediately, he's dead. And so King Thanos sees Cosmic Ghost Rider as somebody who's interesting, right? Somebody who's intriguing, and brings him on as what is basically his assistant, or his right hand. And then following that, we switch back over to what's happening now, which is the fight between the Surfer, King Thanos, along with present-day Thanos and Cosmic Ghost Rider. And it is dope. Because what happens here is that with basically Cosmic Ghost Rider remembering that he's the Punisher and just kind of doing his thing, he just shoots everybody with like hell bullets, right? Hellfire bullets, and does his thing. But then Thanos tells him, like, this is the Annihilation Horde. We need something greater than that. And of course, Cosmic Ghost Rider unleashes the full totality of his Hellfire powers and obliterates the whole of the Annihilation Horde. Now, for those of you guys who are not familiar with the Annihilation Horde, we don't need to go too in-depth into this. Suffice it to say, it comes from the negative zone, basically this alternate dimension that exists out there. But this army numbers in the billions, right? So Cosmic Ghost Rider eradicated all these guys in just one swoop, and that was it. And so with seemingly the Fallen One being defeated, Thanos standing there and observing all of this, he's just kind of like, this isn't right. I fought Silver Surfer countless times in the past. Never has he been so easy to beat. It cannot be this easy. And then like, Silver Surfer appears, right? And he says, no, it was never that easy. It was never going to be that easy. And that's where King Thanos asked the question. If you could kill me, you would have done it by now. So tell me, Norrin Radd, if you came all this way just to die, why did you wait so long? And the response of the Silver Surfer is, I was not waiting, I was working. And when the question's asked by King Thanos, what were you working on? He says, becoming worthy. That Silver Surfer now has the hammer of Thor, and that is dope because he immediately goes to work on this guy. Now, one of the things about this that I always was disappointed about when it came to the story, we never learned how Silver Surfer became worthy, and we never really saw any of the things he did while he had the hammer of Thor. I mean, we get this like one-page shot where he's just like going through and destroying what was basically the forces of Thanos, likely garrisons that were left on other worlds while Thanos was destroying what was left in all of creation. That was basically it. But in essence, and this is the crazy thing here, in this moment where you have Cosmic Ghost Rider, both Thanos and the Silver Surfer, these are the only four beings left in existence. There are no more cosmic entities. There's no more worlds with people on them. Nothing. In the entirety of the universe, these four are all that's left. And so what happens is that Silver Surfer lets King Thanos have it. I mean, he unleashes on him, and it's amazing. It's not even close. In fact, he's going toe-to-toe with both of these guys at the same time. And even when you have Cosmic Ghost Rider who shows up here after Silver Surfer has seemingly just like killed King Thanos, that like Cosmic Ghost Rider tries to overpower the Silver Surfer, and Surfer just like crushes this guy using the hammer, like just obliterates him, blows his head apart, the whole 9 yards. This dude's donezo, right? Like he's out of the picture. And so what happens is that when Surfer turns to Thanos, Thanos is like, you have no clue what you've unleashed, do you? You have no clue what you've done. And the Surfer is just like, I've been beating back the fury of Thanos for eons, child. I assure you, I am more than ready to face you. And the response of Thanos is like, I wasn't talking about myself, and I wasn't talking about the old man. And so when the Surfer asks, like, then tell me, what is it that I've unleashed? The Surfer turns around to find the Incredible Hulk, who's just losing it in this moment, right? Hulk kill. This guy just emerges out of the ground looking incredible, and he just like takes it to the Silver Surfer. Here's the funny thing. When I say that the Silver Surfer dominates the Hulk, he doesn't, because what you would expect to see is like this great big huge grandiose fight. Nope. Literally, the Silver Surfer chokes him out. Like, he just grabs him by the throat. And then immediately, like, Hulk starts punching the Surfer, and nothing happens. He's just bloodying his knuckles. So it might as well be you or me punching the side of a skyscraper, right? Just nothing comes out of this. But what the Surfer is able to do is talk the Hulk down back into his normal Bruce Banner form. And as the Surfer's talking to him, he's like, what has that guy done to you, right? What has the monster done to you? And so Banner's just kind of twisted, right? Just sort of in this almost childlike state. And then Thanos shows back up. Not King Thanos, but regular Thanos. And he just kind of taunts the Surfer, right? He's like, let's hurry this up, shall we? I grow tired of this dancing. And when the Surfer says, I'm not hiding, Thanos, come then, let us end this, the response of Thanos, once again, Surfer, no one's talking to you. Old King Thanos is alive and just stabs through both Banner and the Surfer with the Twilight Sword. Kills these two on the spot. And so it's just like, wow, right? I mean, it was nuts, dude. God, this is taking me back to when I first read this story. It was so incredible. And so both these Thanoses, I don't know what the plural of Thanos is, both these Thani working together basically cut off the arm of the Surfer so he can't lift the hammer anymore, and then tear his body apart. Like literally, King Thanos takes the Surfer's head and smashes it through the hilt of the hammer. It's crazy because, you know, he can't lift the thing. So it's awesome to see like how this fight ends. But here's the funny thing here. It's not the end of the story, because what happens is the two of them are looking out on all this death and destruction, and exactly the way that King Thanos prophesized, Mistress Death is there. She's watching them, and she's wearing a wedding dress. So it's like, wow, like this is really it, right? Like she is there to basically finally become one with King Thanos. And King Thanos is like shocked by it. Like, my lady, you came. And the response to Thanos, indeed she has. But why has she stopped? Why does she not come further? What more does she want? And where he's momentarily interrupted, he says, no, this is enough. No more. And he says, I grow tired of your games. I can only imagine how tired he is of them. What more do you want from me? And where Mistress Death just kind of shrugs, he says, why will you not relent? Speak to me. We have given you everything that you wanted. There is nothing left to kill. What more could you want? And that's when it dawns on Thanos what it is that she's actually looking for. Because her shrugging was not an indication of, I don't know. Her shrugging is, how come you haven't figured it out yet? And when he does, he realizes, I have to kill you, right? Like, I have to kill King Thanos because it's the only way to be with Mistress Death. She is of the realm of death. She has to exist. She has to reside there. The only way to be with her is to go there to where she's at, right? To meet her. And so because of that, this fight breaks out between the two of these guys, and it is an intense knockdown, drag out fight because he's not going to just roll over and die, right? And so as these guys go back and forth with each other, what's cool is the younger Thanos is overpowering his older self, right? He's literally crushing him. And it makes perfect sense, because as long as King Thanos isn't using things like the power cosmic, and because they're focusing on what is in effect a bare knuckle fight, when it comes down to strength, speed, resiliency, it's younger Thanos. Right now, I know it's kind of strange because it says that as Thanos grew older, he became stronger, but the implication there is less about physical strength, and it's more about the levels of power that he was able to gain by virtue of the people he was defeating. So again, taking the power cosmic, things like that, that amplify his abilities, but don't seem to increase his base level strength. There is a little bit of inconsistency here. There is room for debate, and I'm curious to see how you guys feel about that. But what ends up happening is the younger Thanos ultimately says, no, I'm not going to kill you. That's just not going to happen, right? If what you want is to die, then you do it yourself. Because King Thanos starts begging, right? He's like, Thanos, come back and finish this, please. And that's where the younger Thanos is just like, no, like that's not going to happen. If you want to die, do it on your own. He ultimately snatches the Time Stone away from King Thanos, and King Thanos says, like, it's a broken Infinity Stone. It doesn't work, right? I mean, you can't just take it and use it the way you traditionally would. But that's where Thanos realizes that Cosmic Ghost Rider would charge the Time Stone, and that's how he would use it. So in turn, Thanos uses the powers of the Silver Surfer, or really his body, in order to open a time portal and send himself back to the present day. But what he does is that when older King Thanos says, we cannot die, so by you walking away and leaving me here, you're creating a causal loop. I am your future. And so because I exist, the time will come when you will become me, you will seek out your younger self, and then your younger self will leave you to this fate, to basically live out the rest of existence in this universe for eternity, or until the universe dies, and that's it. But the response of the younger Thanos is, no, that's not going to happen, right? What this means is that we are millions of years in the future. It means that I have all the time that I need. I will not kill you, old man, but until I am ash and bone, I will work without end to deny you. I will never become you. I will erase you one way or another. And where King Thanos kind of starts laughing at the idea, what happens is that as Mistress Death approaches him, all around him, reality begins to disintegrate, because this guaranteed future stops being a guaranteed future, because Thanos never arrives on Earth, he never kills all the superheroes, he doesn't launch a war and a crusade across the universe, killing every cosmic entity and everything. He never does that. And so because of that, this future cannot exist. And so King Thanos simply just fades away. But at long last, he finally gets the one thing he always wanted. He gets to be with Mistress Death. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, drop a like. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. And I will catch you all later. Peace.